What's going on, everybody? We were just talking.
Heyo.
What's faster than the speed of sound? The speed of now.
The speed of now. Beep, 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 beep.
And if you can't already see it on Chris's jacket, this is a beer from his brewery, Radiant Beer Company,
I
out
try to
in.
stay branded over here.
Yep, yep. Trying to be seen out there. Radiant's got their
Yep.
salespeople have not going to get hit by a forklift. No,
No,
not going to
no.
happen.
Safety first.
So, usually I'd be kind of diving into the recipe, but this is Chris's brewery's beer, so I'm gonna kick it over to him because it's fresh hop season. So let's pour this sucker, and then Chris, you can take it away.
Yeah, and we knew we really wanted to do a fresh hop beer when we started this. Hey, we're both got the same Radiant
Yeah,
glassware, so that's good. Um, when we started this show on Instagram, we did Sierra Nevada Celebration, which is kind of a different sort of fresh hop beer. And Sierra Nevada is known for kind of distinguishing between, fresh hop and wet hops. And so this is a true wet hop beer. And that's what a lot of people do around harvest time. And when we knew we wanted to do a fresh hop beer, the selfish part of me wants to do the one that the brewery I work for made. And I think
yep.
it's also just independently really, really tasty too. So hopefully you have one as well. It's one of our favorite kind of just beer drinking times when everybody tinkers with these. And they're so fun because they're really experimental in one sense. What the general flavor attributes of some of the hops that you might brew one of these with is, but they're not dried, and they're not kilned, and you don't have any of the like scientific lab style measurements of acid content and other flavor compounds and things like that. So they can be a little bit unpredictable in that sense, which makes it kind of like a fun harkening back. But ours is really simple. Ours, all the hops are Strata. They're from the same lot from the company Indie Hops, and they really awesome selection of hops that they coordinate through some farms in the Pacific Northwest in particular. So kind of a collaboration with them and Coleman Agriculture. And the entire idea was essentially how fast can you get these hops harvested, flown near us so that we can pick them up and
Yeah.
get them into the kettle on brew day. And so it's this real rodeo on brew day of trying to start the brew to where you can have it kind of in a spot time wise where you can get the hops in basically right when you get them. And so a lot of breweries near us went in on this batch of Strata fresh hops, so that we could fly a bunch of them down here. So if you're in Southern California and you see, Green Cheek, Rip, Radiant, a lot of breweries did a Strata fresh hop IPA, and I think Indie Hops in particular kind of they zoned in on Strata for that reason. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, they have a lot more access to different varietals and stuff like that, and everybody has different relationships with direct farms and things of that nature, and so you might see some that are a little bit different, but this is all Strata. And the base of the beer is just kind of our West Coast style IPA base. It's just two row malt and a little bit of white wheat, like that, just kind of like smooth, kind of creaminess almost that white wheat can give you. And in a lot of our kind of West Coast or modern IPAs, we de-emphasize bitterness a little bit. We don't want it to be like super duper bitter, like old school IPA, but we don't want it to be completely toothless either. And so hopefully, we'll find that accentuates a little bit of the fruit character. But um, that's that's about it. I mean, it's about as simple. It's almost a smash beer. It's about as simple as
Oh
you can
yeah.
get in
Hmm.
terms of recipe. It's just some pale malts and fresh Strata hops. And all the Strata for us here is just super late edition and dry hop. We just want to get all that flavor and aroma out of it. And it's not really convenient to use fresh hops for bittering anyway, because you don't really know how much bittering potential that they have. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. We could talk for days about brewing fresh hop beers, but you've got the whole cone. It's not dried out, so the water content is much higher. So you're kind of like diluting your brew a little bit as you're kind of like leaching out the flavor compounds that you want from the hops, but you're also taking water out of the hops, and then it affects your yield because the hops are also soaking up wort, as you make with them. So it's really a fun and truly like experimental way to brew pale ale or IPA, and that's what makes it fun to try everybody's because they're at least a little bit different. Um, but yeah, that's ours. And
Absolutely.
if you've had Strata hops before, that's kind of like one of the newer big darling hops. It's got
Hmm.
a lot of traditional, very like orangey character to it, but the accent piece that a lot of people get is strawberry. And I think when you dive in, Scott, you get some of that like gelatinous kind of fruit type character too.
Yeah, getting a lot of tangerine oils, getting a lot of like really really um like juicy like strawberry that almost still kind of has a little bit of that green ness to it, but still
Yeah.
just really really juicy. Also lots of cantaloupe. I get huge juicy
Ooh,
cantaloupe notes on this.
yeah, that's a great argument. I get that green strawberry thing too, and I think that normal like pelletized strata can also have just like a little bit of dank character, and that's not
Hmm.
really here. This is more fresh fruit. And when we say green, like that's different than green beer, which is just young beer that hasn't
Right.
fully matured. It's green like chlorophyll. Like it tastes like, it smells and tastes like gelatinous plant matter. Or if you've ever had like a chlorophyll tablet, it's like fruit plus one of those. So it doesn't taste like bitter greens really. It tastes like fresh strawberry. Cantaloupe's a great call, and yeah, the tangerine oil is interesting too. I think the mouthfeel of the beer is accentuating that as
I
well.
agree.
But it's a really good like fresh fruit salad kind of character.
Yeah, and the beer is ridiculously clear. The foam cap has been lasting quite a bit of time. Um,
Yep.
like you said, the wheat addition really kind of smooths out the bitterness on the back end, gives it kind of that sense of creaminess. Whether it's actually doing it with any sweetness or not doesn't really matter all that much. An impression's good enough for me.
Yeah, and on the palate, it is. This is not a sweet beer, but it is not bone dry either. It's almost like just left a little bit of creaminess and sweetness. I don't think anyone drinking it in isolation would say it's a sweet beer, but they would say that it's not your most dry and bitter IPA. It's built with just that little bit of residual sweetness to amplify that fruit character, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got my this really funny short story. Scott and I were doing some beer tasting practice literally at Radiant yesterday, and making Scott grabbed a 4 pack of this, make sure we're getting ready for the video or whatever, and I'm driving around doing my job today, and I realize I do not have a can of this beer, and I'm too far away from the brewery on my way home. So I stopped in at Bradley's at Bradley's Wine and Spirits in Tustin, California, which you should go. Great bottle shop, and bought some of my own beer so that I could do the show effectively.
Oh my god. I mean, at least you know where all the accounts are. So yeah, at least you knew the closest place to go.
True. The advantage of having sold it in the first place meant
Yeah.
I could find it. I actually texted someone else as well in our distribution network that was kind of nearby. I was like, "Hey, if you have a can of that, can you make sure it's in the fridge for me, and I'll come buy it off of you for a video that I'm doing." And he texts back, "All sold out. Sorry." And I texted, "No," and then waited a couple of minutes and texted, "I mean, yay!"
Yeah, you're like
Like
refill. Yeah,
it
like
sold really
refill.
well.
Yeah, you want some more? Oh,
So,
that's really funny.
but yeah, I'm glad I got it, and we're here, and we're drinking the same beer, and it is. I think that some fresh hop IPAs, particularly if you're getting some of those like middle to old school varietals of fresh hop, they're a lot more dank than this, right?
Hmm.
Strata affords fresh strata affords you the ability to brew this more like fruit forward kind of like green hop IPA style. Whereas if you have, like a really well known brewery for fresh hop beers is Fremont.
Mm.
Quite a big craft brewery, and they do a bunch of different fresh hop beers. Excuse me, and some of them, will use Amarillo, um, uh, Simcoe, and those all have like a pretty kind of dank character to them anyway. But you're also incorporating some really fresh like plant vegetal matter too that's less
Hmm.
chlorophyll like and almost like even more dank. Um, so that's what I think the main difference is sensory wise. Most of the time is it's going to look, smell, and taste a lot like whatever that brewery's interpretation of IPA normally is, with either a little bit more kind of like a dank, raw, green hop cone character, or kind of that bright chlorophyll, like liquid chlorophyll kind of accent, or maybe a mix of both. But that's kind of that's kind of how I see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the I know I remember this because one of the first episodes we did when we were still doing this on Instagram Live was Sierra Nevada Celebration, and realizing that one of the things about this being seasonal is that if you're not really intentional about doing actual pairing with these kinds of beers, it can be quite it was, I don't know about you, but it was a little bit of a more of a thought process this week. Haven't done a lot with, and I remembered leading up to doing Sierra Nevada Celebration, I did a really big kind of just smorgasbord of different things to just kind of get my head around what pairing with it would be like. But
Yeah.
this is a totally different beer in that regard. A little bit more in that new school realm.
Mm.
Leaning more again towards that sort of that paler two row, and then just a little bit of wheat in West Coast these days. Um, but what did you come up with? What did you come up with for some food pairing?
Well, I want to. So I think regular American Pale Ale or IPA is really good with a pretty wide range of tacos.
Mm,
And
yeah,
the kind of like slightly different angle I want to take is I want to do tacos filled with nopales, with cactus. So
nice.
you can grill the cactus. You kind of like skin them, and you can grill them or saute them, and they have that almost like aloe, like uh, gelatinous kind of middle
Hmm.
or whatever, and the skin gets really tender, and you can kind of like spice it up however you want. But a really good like fruit salsa, um, I think would be really nice with that. So you're getting some complementing with that kind of green character of the cactus with that green character of the hop, but then you're letting that strawberry tangerine kind of fruit character also play in with the fruit salsa. Like if you did like a mango habanero type salsa, I think you're getting a lot of like sweet heat kind of interaction.
Mm,
And this is like a pretty low bitterness IPA as well. So if you're into spice, and you like the flavor of habanero, even though it can get a little bit spicy, this isn't going to accentuate it too much, especially if you use like a very gentle hand with the capsaicin, basically. And I also just think like a really underrated part of that is I would want to do, or you a lot of times if you have like taco night or whatever, you can have a couple of different kinds of tortilla. And
oh
I
yeah.
think you can sort of choose here, right? Do you want that sort of like sweet, grainy character of maize and do your corn tortilla, and that's gonna really sync up with that really just like light sweetness in the beer. Or since we mentioned that little smidge of white wheat in there, you could do flour tortillas too. If you just a lot of people just like the flavor of those a little bit better, um, and get that griddled on both sides, and I think you'll get a lot of synergy with sort of like the mouthfeel and texture of the beer, and then that kind of like doughy flour tortilla character with just that little bit of toast on it, to help provide a little bit of tension as well, because there's not, this is a very pale beer. There's not like much Maillard character to speak of or whatever. So
Absolutely.
you'd really be getting all your grill character from the toast on the tortilla, and then the grill on the nopales. So cactus tacos. How about you?
Nice. Um, I'm in like charcuterie mode this week, and I was trying to think. you know, about how this would attack sort of individual elements, of a charcuterie board. But then I just kind of thought like, why isn't if this is going to be, I wasn't sure how intense it was going to be. It's pretty intense beer. And so I just thought,
Yeah.
why not just, charcuterie board? Let's just combine your powers. Let's just grab, if there's some apricot, I wasn't sure what kind of, fruit flavors we were going to get. So I was kind of leaving my options open for what fruit to use. Cause I remember one of the classic things I ordered at an Italian restaurant that I didn't know existed or was a thing was prosciutto wrapped melon, and I just
Oh
didn't
yeah.
understand how good that was until I had it. I was like, I just never really understood. But this has kind of already got some melon. It's already kind of got some strawberry. So I'm thinking apricot, prosciutto wrapped, which I've had a lot of good experience with in the past in terms of just kind of the saltiness, kind of toning down bitterness a lot, and then really kind of helping that to kind of amp up some of the hop profile and the intensity of the hop character. But then I think also throwing in another complementary element would be good. And I think one of my favorite cheeses recently is Brie Savaron, which is it's
Hmm.
like triple cream. It's basically just like if you want to be eating buttercream without all the sugar, like just eat this cheese. It's so fucking good. I love this cheese, and I think it's just going to be the absolute perfect canvas for all of the hop character. We've talked plenty of times on this channel about dairy and esters or hop, or fruity hop character, and how that's just it consistently is a home run. And so I think there's just two really good bridges, one really good piece of contrast, and then of course it has carbonation, it has bitterness. It's not exactly low in ABV. What's this clocking in at? Yeah, seven
I think,
six. This has
yeah,
got
7.6, 7.5.
yeah, so this is cutting across all three of the all three of the ABCs for cutting alcohol, bitterness, and carbonation. So that was something I got pretty excited about. And then one of the things here I think a lot of people are hoping to do with IPAs, and I think because this one's a little bit more tame in bitterness, you can probably get some more positive canceling with some salads. And again, not kind of knowing what fruits were going to kind of show up. Really was trying to figure out how to work with some sort of like working with kiwi, into some kind of salad.
Hmm.
Not really sure how. But working with some, but I was also like, if wet hop strata is not bringing the strawberry, then you could go a strawberry salad. You kind of don't go too, acidic of a vinaigrette. And then you just kind of play with different elements of the salad. You can throw, if you want to get that salty impression thing, you can throw in something, salty like bacon bits or something like that. Or I don't know. I was thinking about salad. I didn't come up with anything super specific because I wasn't really sure. But again, wanted to throw in cheese in there too. Thought some goat cheese would be pretty great. I mean, goat cheese especially is just already, just people put fruits and herbs and spices onto goat cheese. There's all kinds of varieties you can get at the store. So it felt like if this is going to be herbaceous or because you can, like you said, you can kind of get a little bit more of those kind of greener flavors. Maybe a little bit more herbaceous when you're working with wet hops. Thought maybe that could work really well with something like a goat cheese. So yeah, I think salad's something that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think that this is one of those areas of complementing where you're working with flavor profiles that are pretty tame, like a strawberry is not that intense. Like
No,
even the world's juiciest strawberry right off
yeah,
the
it's still mostly
bush,
water. Yeah,
it's still mostly water, and it just has this like super pleasant, like
right.
how do you explain what strawberries taste like? But it's not like you run the risk of over compounding the strawberry character, for example, or the kiwi character, or like lychee is another one that we pull up flavors out of beer a little bit, and just on its own, it's not that strong of a flavor. So I think sometimes it either maybe to some people sounds boring or too samesies to do like strawberry character beer with strawberry food. But I think that is only a problem with fruits or flavor compounds that are really in your face. Having this, which is not, this beer is not a strawberry bomb. When we say it kind of smells and tastes like it has strawberry angle. It's a very
Right.
light thread throughout the beer. It's just kind of like a third or fourth signature of this hop varietal beyond some of kind of the other more traditional flavors. You pair that with a salad that's got a lot of other kind of like bitter dressing. If you're putting the goat cheese in there and you want fresh strawberries on there too, I mean, you are not at risk of falling into a strawberry coma. It's going to be very pleasant.
Yeah, and especially for something like you said, like a strawberry, where there's I was reading a book, and they were talking about all the different compounds that it takes for a food company to recreate a strawberry flavor, and there's so many different ones that all have to come together, as opposed to something like a banana, where it's I feel like it's gotten less and less, but I know back in the day it was like the amount of isoamyl acetate in bananas was so high, where what you're talking about, if that compound is something you're working with, then you're maybe working into something that's like too matchy, or you're
Hmm.
running into just two things that might kind of temper down two flavors that you're wanting to make sure are still part of the profile. But I think you're right. I think it's already hard enough to draw strawberry out of anything, especially beer, that you can probably be a little heavy handed.
Agreed. For dessert
Yeah.
stuff, I think this is fun too because you're working with both the freshness and we're not super high on the bitterness scale for this beer. And it's interesting looking at, if you ever look up IPA and dessert recipes, you're just hit one is carrot cake, you know, and it just like everybody's convinced that that works all the time. And I think that the character here is different enough that there are a lot more possibilities. And I wanted to. I hadn't tasted this beer in a couple of days. I wanted to taste it again to make sure this would work live, obviously. But I'm super intrigued with pairing this with a dessert that's based on a fruit harvest that happens about at the same time, which is just apples. And the Pacific Northwest is known for apples too. And there's no real apple character in this beer, so we can get some fruit complement that's a little bit different than that melange of fruits that we were getting before. And I'm going to do an apple cobbler. So you got kind of like that biscuity dough on the top, baked into a pan with freshly harvested apples that are kind of the sweeter variety. So your Honey Crisps or like your Golden Delicious, not something that's too tart that you have to like simmer in a bunch of sugar or something to get um, much sweeter. So sweet apple, fresh harvest cobbler with like a mascarpone cream on it. Borrow a little bit of your um, cheese ideas from the charcuterie board and from the salad. Let's incorporate that in dessert, and that's a little bit of a good vehicle too for staying away from like that might be pretty good with some vanilla bean ice cream on it too. And I don't think that that would be obviously that dessert would be awesome. The pairing might be a little sweet if you're like already in apple cobbler territory and vanilla ice cream. I don't know. So I was just like trying to pull it back a little bit and incorporate some cheese. And so that mascarpone cream I think is a good stand-in that's not as sweet as the vanilla ice cream, can give you some of the same kind of creamy elements. That is a really intriguing play with the that kind of just like 10% creaminess of the beer, and then all the fruit. It's like having a fruit salad with mascarpone cream on top. And then that kind of biscuit. I chose cobbler instead of crumble or pie just because that sort of like flaky, biscuity top crust or whatever I think is a decent match for just two row and wheat character to kind of find a little bit of synergy there. So just like marrying the idea of fresh harvest, even though apple is not a character of this beer, with fresh apples made into an apple cobbler. That's my idea.
That
How about you?
sounds that sounds great. I was speaking of tasting practice. One of the places I go usually when we're doing tasting practice at Radiant is I go to the Anaheim Packing District, and they have a bakery there, and they had these lemon yuzu tartlets, and they had something on top. I couldn't tell if it was a slice of lemon or yuzu that had been confit, and
Oh,
it just looked fascinating because it kind of had that kind of kind of mascarpone looking or cream looking kind of center in the tartlet. That's probably what was infused with with the lemon. They had this again, and it wasn't like it's something that I kind of was thinking along the same lines as you, because I was looking at it and I was like, it doesn't really look like a tart, because it didn't look like it had like a pie crust, because it was like, a good solid like half-inch thick. And I asked them,
Mm.
and they said it was a little bit more kind of like this. They kind of tried to do that, but make it a little bit more airy, a little bit more kind of flaky. In that way, it was almost some sort of, it was kind of hard for them. I think don't think they were the ones that made it. I think they were just trying to explain something that maybe the person who
Yeah.
baked it could have given me a better description, but some sort of hybrid in that way. And again, even just from tasting the beer, almost just texturally, it just feels like, weirdly enough, that those sorts of bread notes would just play super well together. That kind of like flaky wheat, kind of flavor and texture seems to work well together. And then of course, the yuzu fruit, the lemon is all going to work really, really well. Hopefully the whatever the cream is, or the cheese is, that's either going to be another really good complement, or if it's something that's a little bit sweeter, it can be something that can provide a little bit more tension, but obviously not anything. Didn't look like it was anything super duper sweet. One thing I was really trying to do was fit in mint somewhere. Just felt like mint was
Mm.
going to be something to play well, but just never really came up with. It's just not. Other thing is, I don't like mint all that
Mm.
much, which is one of the things I think we try and do, is we when we're thinking of these exercises, we do think about what we would like, but we're also trying to think about just what would be good. And sometimes that's we could be partnering with a chef at some point for some beer dinner, and they're just like, we just got a bunch of fresh mint, what do you think we should do? And
Yeah.
I, even though I do not eat mint ever, um I should be able to come up with something. So I was really I'm going to keep working at that and see
Well,
if that's.
it's a good cautionary tale because we a lot of people don't like mint, for example, because it just reminds them of like toothpaste or whatever, just like stuff that they don't eat that's minty for other reasons, or chewing gum or what have you. And is it a similar thing happens with cherries, right? Like people will taste cherry beer all the time, and they're like, "This tastes like cough syrup," and it's like, no, 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 no. Real cherries were used in the making of this beer. The cough syrup tastes like the cherries. It's not the other way
Right.
around. And we have to remember that too, because right, you're not trying to fix any of those associations for people, but we don't want to have blind spots in our approach to food pairing either, where we're just like, "Oh, I've never found myself pairing with mint at all, just because I don't eat it." But that's a really intriguing idea because of just that, you know, it's easy to have fresh mint because it's such an easy herb to grow. And then it's also fresh in the sense that when you're breaking it into a dish, you're just releasing aromatics and oils galore. And so it kind of mimics some of that freshness character as well. And so, yeah, that's if you're out there like always thinking about different food pairings, try to force yourself to come up with some ideas for what might pair with ingredients or dishes that you don't normally eat. Because a couple of things is going to happen. Either it's just going to force you to be a little bit creative, and you're going to find some ideas you didn't really think of before. So you're thinking outside of your normal echo chamber of ingredients that you always cook with. Or you might find that you like it in a certain preparation, and that would be the real win, right? It's like, oh,
Absolutely.
I'm not like a mint ice cream guy or whatever, but having it with this beer just lit my brain on fire, and that was amazing.
Yeah, how often have we heard of it? I feel like when I teach any beer and food pairing stuff, this happens with like blue cheese and IPA. People are like, I don't like IPA, I don't like blue cheese, but if you like put them together, I'll have them together for sure. So even if it doesn't
Yeah,
mean that you just all of a sudden like whatever it is, like in perpetuity, even if you just like it in one or two particular scenarios, right? All the better and more like just rich life that you get to live.
yeah. And another great example too is, and you've test driven this like 100 times at this point, is white chocolate in certain beers. And people are all, I mean, we were in a virtual tasting with a half a dozen advanced and now master cicerones, and is sort of like universal, like, I don't really like white chocolate. And then we had a pairing that you put together, and it was like, but this is pretty good. So you
Absolutely.
can get some big wins for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has done any food pairing with fresh hop beers, wet hop beers, let us know in the comments. This is one that I would particularly be interested in. You know, because I know for us, whenever something kind of comes up and it's like, oh, that seems kind of unique. My Chris Pisney senses start tingling, and I think, oh, maybe this is something he'll put on the master exam. So. I
Yeah,
always,
right.
I always want to, I always want to do a little bit of a deep dive into it if I can. And this is one I personally would definitely need some community support from because they're just not around long enough to, do a ton of pairing with. Is
And
the
this is a really
is the
good
fact?
style of beer as well to just get your input on your local ones too. If you
Mm,
watch this video and you taste it along with a different one, because I know Radiant's only available in Southern California. We didn't pick that because it's widely available. We picked it because it was easy for us to get, and I selfishly also wanted to talk about it. But a lot of breweries do a fresh hop beer. They're all out in the market right now, probably selling out quite quickly because they're still very popular. And there were a lot of Strata fresh hop IPAs
mm.
all over the place as well. But the larger point being, let us know what your locals have flown in, or if you're in the Pacific Northwest and there's a brewery that does a really good job that you're thinking of. I've seen in the Pacific Northwest beer dinners that are entirely fresh hop beer focused, and that's super intriguing as well. And if you've ever gotten to go to one of those, that would be great. But yeah, just engage with us. These are so unique. They're a bunch of different flavors. They maybe share a couple of signatures, but we are super curious for how the ones you're drinking taste like as well. So shoot us a comment.
Absolutely. And in that same vein, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks to everybody who's been supporting us along the way. Next week, we have pumpkin ale. We have pumpkin ale from Dogfish Head. So we've already picked up our cans. We're ready to go. You can pick that one up. It seems like that one's going to be pretty well distributed, but I'm sure everybody, like, once again, probably have a local brewery that makes your favorite pumpkin beer. So make sure to grab that. That'll be a fun one to think through some pairing. So I'm excited to put that one from pen to paper and hopefully from beer and food to my mouth. So that'll
Exactly.
be
That
the best
that'll be a
way to do
fun
it.
one.
Yeah,
Start the
exactly.
YouTube channel with Cantillon, come full circle to pumpkin ale.
That's right. All right.
Cheers,
Cheers,
everybody. Thanks for
everybody.
joining us.
Yeah.